On this episode, we'll be looking at the emergence of a world power. By the end of the episode, you will be able to explain the effects of the Industrial Revolution on the United States, trace the U.S. path to world power, and identify some ways in which American society has worked toward equality among citizens.
Roaming around the world to teach you how to use a map. Making social studies interesting, I swear this is no trap. Gonna learn about population, lines and degrees. Once you're through with me, this will all be a breeze. We'll travel around the world to visit seas and land. Hopefully you'll learn something with the videos I have planned. After we're through with all of this, you'll better understand. We're ready to get started with one question at hand. Where in the world is M.K. Shenandoah?
In the 1800s, an angry man by the name of Jacob Riis wrote a book. This book is called How the Other Half Lives, and it showed readers what lives of the immigrant workers were like. He wrote it in hopes that other people would be inspired to stand up and fight for a change for these workers. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution had made life easier for the rich and for the middle class. However, it caused trouble for the poor. The poor class was made up of immigrants, and these immigrants made up the labor force, or the supply of workers. These workers were paid very little. Some factories even employed children for lower wages than adults. Many people tried to reform the conditions of these workers. For example, Jane Addams set up a settlement house, or a community center for poor immigrants. Mary Harris Jones was nicknamed Mother Jones because of the work she did to end child labor. Some people, looking to escape poverty, began to move out west, especially after 1862 when the Homestead Act was passed. The Homestead Act guaranteed 160 acres of land to any adult who was willing to work and live on that land for 5 years. As people began moving west, railroads helped to keep both the east and the west connected. Many homesteaders held on for the 5 years, in spite of the short supply of water and trees, the swarms of insects, the wild prairie fires, and the very hot temperatures. With all these things going on, the U.S. still found time to expand. In 1867, the U.S. bought territory from Russia. This territory is the state of Alaska. In 1898, the U.S. took control of Hawaii. In that same year, the U.S. also gained control of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines by winning the Spanish-American War and gaining control of these places from Spain. Years later, in 1914, World War I broke out in Europe. The United States joined the Allied powers of Great Britain and France 3 years later. Together, they fought against the Central Powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey. And with American help, the Allies won the war in 1918. Just 2 years later, the economy was booming and women had earned their right to vote. In 1929, economic disaster struck in what is known as the Great Depression. This caused many factories to close and many more people to lose their jobs, and some families even lost their farms. In 1933, a man named Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected president. He came up with new programs to help people get their jobs and to restore the economy. Germany was also affected by the Great Depression, and in 1933, Germany looked to Adolf Hitler, their dictator, to help them. Hitler led the people of Germany to believe that they were a superior group to others, and in 1939 began invading other countries and starting World War II. During the war, Hitler forced many groups of people, such as the Gypsies and the Jews, into camps. While in these camps, these people were murdered. This mass murder is called the Holocaust. The U.S. did not join the war until 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, a naval base in Hawaii. Japan was an ally to Germany, so the U.S. declared war on both Germany and Japan. President Roosevelt had led us into the war, but died in April of 1945. At that time, the vice president took over and became president. This man is named Harry S. Truman. In May of 1945, the Allies had defeated the Germans. President Truman decided to drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan, thus ending World War II. Post-war, or after the war, the U.S. feared the Soviet Union because they practiced a government called communism, where the states own all the property. Because the Soviet Union had taken control of the majority of the European countries, the U.S. was scared. This caused them to enter the Cold War, which was a period of time where there was tension that lasted for more than 40 years. From this tension came 2 other wars, the Korean War and the Vietnam War. After World War II, the economy of the U.S. was doing wonderfully. However, not all people had the same rights. People like Martin Luther King Jr. led the Civil Rights Movement, which was a movement to end segregation or separation and win rights for African Americans. Don't forget about the coordinates for the last known whereabouts of M.K. Shenandoah. She's at 40 degrees north and 76 degrees west. Tune in next time to find out where in the world is M.K. Shenandoah.